Seth Ferranti here, your guide through the dark corners of the criminal underworld. As an outlaw filmmaker, author, and journalist, I've delved deep into the minds of gangsters, drug lords, and prison gangs. But my journey doesn't stop there. Let me take you on a thrilling ride as we explore the hidden stories and untold truths that lurk behind the prison walls.
During this party of the 1970s, the Mexican Mafia would become well known all over California. All the Mexican street gangs paid tribute to La M. The organization's name spread fear in the streets, and law enforcement was getting hip to the gang and who their leaders were, in and out of prison.
Morgan and La M.A. were part of a new generation of drug lords that didn't answer to the Italian Mafia. They made their own connects, getting heroin straight from the source. Before, the main smack track to the States ran through the Italians, who got it from French refineries and the Middle East. But as that route started drying up, it was time to look south of the border. Poppy's been grown in the hills of Sinaloa in Mexico since the 19th century, and the connections that Morgan put together in prison allowed La M.A. and their street affiliates to start moving Mexican black tar heroin in the 70s. Morgan had a lot of heroin connections. He did business with the Italians and the Aryan Brotherhood, but Harry Buckley Gamboa, a childhood friend who was hiding out in Mexico, introduced Morgan to Jesus Araujo, the head of the Araujo drug cartel. Shortly after he became Morgan's main supplier of heroin, he let everyone in Southern California's criminal underworld know that if they were in the dope business, they had to sell Mexican Mafia dope. If you refused, you were hit, murdered. Morgan considered the Mafia's financial condition the most important aspect, but other brothers didn't share his opinion. With made members in every major southern city in California, Morgan knew that La M.A. was sitting on a gold mine. Morgan envisioned the gang being like the Italian Mafia. He wanted the leaders of the Mafia to insulate themselves from committing violence and minimize those risks. He thought of himself as a Carlo Gambino or Lucky Luciano type, calling the shots while the soldiers did the dirty work and counting the money all the way to the bank. In the late 70s, prominent mafia killer Ramon Mundo Mendoza became a government informant. Morgan had no idea that one of his trusted confidants was actively working against him and playing ball with law enforcement. Mundo testified that Morgan was responsible for ordering multiple murders both inside the belly of the beast and out on the street. He implicated Morgan in the murder of Robert Mrazek, an associate of La M.A., who was shot to death in 1977. Mrazek's wife Helen had allegedly asked Morgan to kill her husband. After his arrest in May of 1978, Morgan would never see the streets again.
In 1992, the Edward James Olmos film American Me was released. It was a fictionalized version of the Mexican Mafia La M.A. story and included the character J.D., based on Morgan. The movie raised the stature of La M.A. and put them on the map, just like The Godfather did for the Italian Mafia.
Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family.
In 1992, the Edward James Olmos film American Me was released. It was a fictionalized version of the Mexican Mafia story and included the character J.D. based on Morgan. The movie raised the stature of La M.A. and put them on the map just like The Godfather did for the Italian Mafia. La M.A. went from being just a prison gang to being recognized as a bona fide criminal organization. The problem the Mexican Mafia had with the movie was that La M.A. hero Rudy Cheyenne Cadena, who was represented by the Santana character, got raped on the inside, an event that didn't occur and one that La M.A. couldn't let pass. Richard Valdemar said that when they made that movie, they actually approached Morgan and supposedly got unofficial permission to make that movie as long as he hired Mexican Mafia advisors, and almost did in fact do that. But when he did that, he put himself under the rules of the Mexican Mafia. After the film's release, Morgan filed a lawsuit against Olmos Universal and several others seeking $500,000 in punitive damages. In the court filing, Morgan argued that a character depicting him in the film committed crimes he didn't do, and that hurt his chances for parole. Morgan also argued that they didn't have the right to use his likeness or his story without his permission. The case was eventually dismissed, but 3 people associated with both the film and the Mexican Mafia were murdered after the film was released.
We're headed into probably the hardest point of the shoot. We now know that in the last week, there have been 3 deaths in the 2-block radius in which we're working.
The fallout from the movie has caused Hollywood to shy away from any other Mexican Mafia-related projects. On November 9th, 1993, Morgan died of cancer at the age of 64 at Corcoran State Prison Hospital. There were 2 correctional officers in the room with Morgan when the priest came in to read him his last rites. Even as he died, Morgan kept his true character and dismissed the priest, not wanting to have anything to do with him. Morgan was a career prison gangster who went hard and helped solidify the Mexican Mafia as one of the most powerful gangs in the United States. Today, La M controls almost all of the Hispanic gangs in Southern California, a vast network of Serrano gangbangers who do the bidding of their vicious prison shot callers. After the 3 technical advisors from American Me were murdered, the actor who played JD, William Forsythe, called up Richard Valdemar and asked him, "Hey, am I in trouble?" Valdemar told the actor, "No, they love you. They think you've played him to perfection, so you're not in trouble." In fact, he says, the scene where he's walking onto court with the leather jacket on, if I didn't know that was the actor, I would have thought that was Joe Morgan.
As we reach the end of this edition of Seth Ferrante's True Crime, one thing is clear. Joe Morgan's impact on the Mexican Mafia cannot be denied. It's crazy to think that the scariest dude in the Mexican Mafia was a white dude. If there was one person in the Mexican Mafia that you didn't want to come up against, it was definitely Joe Pegleg Morgan. Dude was vicious.